Like a lot of great art, the following program contains nudity, so viewer discretion is advised.
Exclusively on ESPN Plus, UFC 313, Saturday. Reigning light heavyweight champion Alex Pereira defends his title against number one contender Magomed Ankalaev, and an explosive lightweight bout between Justin Gaethje and Rafael Fiziev. UFC 313, Saturday at 10 p.m. Eastern. Buy it on ESPNplus.com/PPV.
This episode is brought to you by Coffee Mate. After watching this season of the HBO's original series, The White Lotus, this is the tropical getaway I needed. One more pina colada, please.
Hey, you're not on mute.
Oh, I thought I was in paradise. Turns out, it was my Coffee Mate. Coffee Mate Pina Colada and Thai-iced coffee-flavored creamers. Inspired by the newest season of HBO's original series, The White Lotus. For the love of coffee. Try now.
Spanning the globe to bring you the latest in classic rock news and comment. It's the Classic Guitar Rock Daily Update with your host, Jeremy Lunnan.
Hello, there is always, I'm just being honest, there's always an added element of excitement on a Friday. I don't know why that is, because we're all working for the weekend. I understand that, and we all like the weekend. And I'm going to quit making excuses as to why I'm not doing the daily update daily anymore. I mean, I've got excuses, but I'm not going to make. Well, I will say this: I got a full-time job, right? I got a limited amount of time that I can devote to the classic guitar rock empire. And I'll be honest, most of the time I've been dedicating to the radio station at this point, which means the update, the podcast has been taking a back seat. So my apologies for that. But thank you so much for all the support. And a number of you know who you are, have been very supportive, sending emails, listening to the station and the podcast. And I really appreciate that so much. In fact, we got 2 great emails from 2 great listeners and supporters that we'll get to in today's episode. But I had to plug the radio station. If you haven't checked out the radio station, and some exciting news about the radio station, here's my next online radio. For the most part, if you listen to an online radio, it's automated, right? So, and I know I'm peeling back the curtain. I'm revealing all the industry secrets, right? It's automated. So you load your music, you load your stuff. There's some clunky things that happen. You can tell it's automated, right? One of the things I'm working on is to actually go live to where we'll actually have, I don't know if it would be daily or however we do it, but I have the technology to actually go live and do a live music broadcast, right? Where you're playing, you can take calls. It's like a real radio show, right? On a regular FM or AM station, right? So that's coming. Just got to work out the details, but that will be coming soon enough. Guys, I just have to tell you, I worked in radio from about 85 to about 95. So 10 years in radio. The world has completely changed in terms of the radio industry. Small little state. I started at a station in Lawton, Oklahoma, southwestern Oklahoma, town of about 100,000 people. I literally worked in a state. I started working the midnight stack. What did I work? Yeah, midnight till 6 in the morning every night. That was my shift. I was like 18 years old, right? And these days, I don't think a kid, if they want to do radio, can actually get a radio job, right? Because it's all automated. It's the two-edged sword. On one hand, it's sad because how many kids get to work in a radio station in the middle of a wheat field in Southwest Oklahoma anymore? Probably doesn't happen because it's all syndicated or automated, and they don't need an 18-year-old kid to actually be a DJ, right? Well, this technology that allows for automation things also allows now for anyone who wants to can have a radio station, right? You could start a radio station like I've done. The challenge then is, how do you differentiate your radio station from all the other thousands of online radio stations playing music? Well, that's the challenge. That's where I'm at. And so that much of my focus has been on that over the last month or so. Why am I going down this rabbit hole? I'm sorry. I'm just going on tangents today. Let's talk about some news. Shall we do that? Steve Albini. I think that's how he pronounces his last name. Steve Albini, prolific producer and engineer. He's worked with Nirvana, the Pixies. I actually first became aware of him because he had worked with Cheap Trick. So I became aware of him. Well, he has just passed away. Only 61, guys, 61 years old, and he has died of a heart attack. Check out interviews with Steve Albini. First of all, he doesn't look like a rock guy at all. But he has long been a critic of the music industry. Talking about how, they tend to squeeze every bit of money out of artists while stifling their creativity, right? Isn't that what the big complaint is? Cookie cutter stuff. Let's not give bands the freedom to do stuff. Guys, another tangent, second tangent. Find this interview with Frank Zappa. Frank Zappa talks about how back in the early 60s, the radio executives were all businessmen, guys chomping on cigars that knew nothing about music. He said those old guys were way more open to experimentation and creativity than the so-called, hippie. He called them hippies. Then the hippies that would come in that supposedly knew all about rock music. He said it was way better when you had the old, guys chomping their cigars, wearing their white shirts and ties, the corporate guys. He said they were way better than the hippies that they brought in the 70s. That was the beginning of over formatting and stifling the creativity. And, we saw it with grunge. This is not a slam on grunge. This is a slam on the music industry. Once Nirvana broke, once Pearl Jam broke, then guess what? All the other record companies, oh, no. We need a band that wears flannel shirts and sounds like Pearl Jam or Nirvana. And so for 3 years, that's all we got. That's what the music industry does, right? They are copycats. They're not creatives anymore, sadly. Well, Albini was a creative, and one of his critiques of the music industry was just that it's all about money. You don't let artists create. You don't let them experiment. You try and control and micromanage everything. His minimal production methods, often characterized by his clients as merely pushing record as the tapes rolled, were viewed as controversial by some and refreshing by others. So yeah, he was a guy that was like, he did not micromanage at all, right? And I guess it would depend on the band. For some bands, they probably needed to be micromanaged, but Albini famously did not do that. But he's passed away at the age of 61. Our condolences to him and his family. Also, Dennis Thompson, the drummer and last remaining member of MC5, has died at the age of 75. According to the Detroit Free Press, Thompson passed away at Metal Lodge of Taylor, a care facility outside of Detroit. He actually had a heart attack in April, and he was recovering from that. So he's just passed away. The MC5, they were kind of more a regional. I mean, they never were a huge national act, but if you were from that area, that part of the country, the upper Midwest, they were pretty influential to a lot of bands. From our Brave New World file, we get this story. The family of the late Small Faces and Humble Pie singer Steve Marriott is fighting against the potential release of AI-generated recordings of his voice. Guys, let's talk about this for a minute. I have so many thoughts on this. AI, and when we see it all the time, right? We've talked about this. You go on, you watch the Facebook or the YouTube shorts where you hear Joe Rogan pitching something or talking about something, and you know that ain't really Joe Rogan. It's an AI version of his voice. Okay, that's scary, right? That's the scary part of AI is, are you really hearing somebody that the claim is you are hearing from, right? So apparently there were some recordings that were incomplete, but Steve Marriott's widow, Toni Marriott, whom he married 2 years before he died in 1991, he died in a house fire, by the way. So they're going to use AI to finish these. By the way, AI was used in remember a few months ago when the Beatles released that new track. Not really AI produced voices, but that's such a broad term. It means so many different things. But in this instance, it's actually, they're going to do an AI version of his voice. Now, about 2 weeks ago, if you follow country music, Randy Travis has a new song out. Well, Randy Travis hasn't been able to speak. I mean, he had I think a stroke or an aneurysm 10 years ago, and he's been unable to basically talk or sing since then. And yet now there's a new Randy Travis song out using AI. So they have AI'd his voice. And let me give you another example. My real job during the day is I create training, corporate, for a company. And there's a tool I use. It's scary. It's kind of cool, but kind of scary, that creates videos. I record myself for 30 seconds. Okay. So there's a file of me. Now they have my voice on file. And now when I create these videos, it automatically generates a voiceover using the AI version of my voice. It's kind of creepy. A good old friend of mine is chiming in, Russell Yaksick. Russell, thank you for chiming in. Russell and I go way back. Lawton High Wolverines, class of 85. In a lot of ways, Russell, it has taken the art out of artists. And that's the danger. That's the danger. I think that's what we all fear. So what do you think about this? The widow has kind of given approval to finish these Steve Marriott tunes using AI, but members of the family and other people are opposed to it. So let me read you this quote. The Marriott estate is due to release an AI solo album of old and new songs of my father, Steve, his daughter, Molly Marriott, said in a statement. Sadly, the surviving family, which comprises just my siblings, Leslie, Toby, Tanya, and I, have nothing to do with the estate, as there was no will. It is run by my stepmother, who was only with my father for 2 years prior to his death and has since been remarried. We, along with his bandmates of Humble Pie and Small Faces, are looking to stop this album from happening, as it would be a stain on my father's name. She continued, someone who was known as one of the greatest vocalists of our generation, with such a live and raw vocal, it would absolutely break his heart if he were alive to know this. This is only for money, not art or appreciation. There it is, right there. Okay. As Russell just said, AI has taken the art out of the artist, or the artist out of the art. Okay. That's exactly what's happening here. And the other folks have chimed in. Robert Plant, David Gilmour, Paul Weller, Brian Adams, Peter Frampton, who was also in Humble Pie, Kenny Jones, who was in the Small Faces and the Who. They're all, saying, hey, this is not right. Here's a quote from Robert Plant. This is a far cry from what any of us dreamt of when we set off into this wonderful world of music. We just can't stand by and watch this unfold. Okay. Interesting, Robert Plant. Okay. Just an interesting little backstory. Robert Plant was a total Small Faces fanboy. Seriously. He was a huge fan. In fact, I've heard that when Jimmy Page had this idea of what would become Led Zeppelin, Marriott's the guy he wanted, and he couldn't get him. So Robert Plant wound up, and Robert Plant's awesome. But guys, go back and listen to Small Faces, even early Humble Pie. Robert Plant borrowed a lot from Steve Marriott. A lot of the stuff. They're both great singers. I'm not discounting Robert Plant. He's one of the great vocalists. But Marriott was doing a lot of what Plant would eventually do before Plant ever did, right? And for whatever reason, Steve Marriott just never got the notoriety, but he was a phenomenal talent. That's a rabbit hole worth going down, by the way, Steve Marriott, his history. Check out some of the Small Faces tunes, the Humble Pie stuff. One of our podcast episodes, go back a ways, is Humble Pie, a review of their album Smokin'. And yeah, just a great talent. But it will be interesting to see how this plays out. And guys, there will be more of this to come, way more of this to come. AI it's here. It's only going to be more invasive, intrusive. And there are some things that are really cool about it. Like I said, in my job, I use it. And to be honest, I love it. Makes my job easier. But when you're talking about art, yeah, it's a slippery slope. We'll have to see how this plays out. Steve Perry is re-recording, or has, how can I say this? He's made an updated version of the song It Could Have Been You, which was on Journey's 86 album Raised on Radio. Trev Lukather is the son of Steve Lukather, of course, of Toto, and one of the most prolific studio guitarists ever. You've heard hundreds of songs that Steve Lukather played on, and you might not even know it, whether it's Michael Jackson, Lionel Richie, the Tubes, you name it. He's played on tons of records. Anyways, his son Trev has a band called The Effect. He wanted to do a version of It Could Have Been You for their new album. And he called Steve and talked to him about it. And then before he knows it, Steve's actually over in the studio and he sings it. So Steve has recorded this version of this song that will be on this album by The Effect. So it will be interesting to hear that. I haven't heard it yet, but it'll be cool. Speaking of new music, Sebastian Bach has a new solo album called Child Within the Man. I checked out a couple songs from it this morning, and all I want to say is this: it's really good. It sounds really good. And the reason he's in the news today is, well, it's nothing earth-shattering. He says, quote, this is an interview with, let me see who the interview is. Interview with Kyle Meredith. He says, it's my mission to bring back the fun of rock and roll, which I find sorely lacking. I can't find fun on the internet. No matter how hard I try, I can't find it. It's all negative fighting. This guy said this about this guy. That's not rock. Rock is supposed to be coming together, and that's what it always was before it all went to the internet. And now it's all clickbait and fighting and bickering. So I'm trying to just bring back the fun. That's it. That's all I'm trying to do. And I have to say, the new stuff from Sebastian that I've heard is really good. So I'm looking forward to this new album. Good for you, Sebastian. 2 great emails from 2 great supporters of the podcast. And they're both kind of long, but they're great. And I'm going to share these with you. First one is from our friend Ron Kramer. Ron is a over the road trucker. Okay. So he listens to the podcast as he's driving. Hopefully, Ron, you've been able to check out the radio station too. There's a plug. Okay. He says, "Hi, Jeremy. Thanks for not only reading my email, but also sharing it with your listeners. I'm blown away. Many thanks." And yes, I just listened to that update today because I'm on the road again, currently in Wyoming. Driving is when I do the bulk of my listening because I have the attention span of a 4-year-old and need to occupy my mind with something other than the prairie. Now, the original email was about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So this is kind of following up on that. Because as I read the last one, I had talked about the Steve Miller's acceptance speech where he kind of takes the Rock Hall to task. It's kind of cool. He says, "I did actually see Steve Miller's speech. I was actually thinking more of an instance where an inductee doesn't even show up and maybe issues a public statement to the effect that they want nothing to do with the Hall of Dung. Something akin to your update where you discussed how Kanye West sampled Ozzy's music sans permission, and Ozzy went off the rails on his own crazy train, pun intended, and said he didn't want his music associated with West in any way. I'm not sure, but I think the Sex Pistols may have done something like that. That's probably the only way anything will change. If enough big names get together and boycott the place, maybe the HOD, Hall of Dung, will wise up, or maybe not. Artists have banded together before. Live Aid, fighting Napster, and speaking out against Tipper Gore's PMRC. After all, for any kind of Hall of Fame, the potential inductees should have the biggest voice regarding which of their peers get in and which don't. It's really their hall more than some non-artist, non-musician consortium of music theme park employees, isn't it? And at least the artists would probably recognize that the longevity, record sales, and influence of the Go-Go's pales in comparison to, say, Girls' School, who are still rocking today. Some notes and a question. I was recently talking to a former work colleague and discovered that we had both been big fans of Riot and still are. He knew a lot more about the band than I did and informed me that the seal pup on the album covers actually had a name, Tior. Kind of an odd mascot, if you ask me, not like they could trot him out on stage. Tior. Okay. Guys, go back to one of our earliest episodes. I think it's called Riot, the greatest band you've never heard, I think is what it's called, something like that, where we talk about Riot's history is riddled with just bad decisions by management. It's amazing. Tior, the baby seal mascot, may be the biggest mistake they ever made. But Fire Down Under, the 1981 album by Riot, that's on my top 5 albums ever list. That's how good that album is. They should have been huge. He continues here. I did check out one of your videos for the first time. The new studio looks swanky. I expected to see Ron Burgundy sitting next to you. Stay classy, rockers. Also, there is an all-female AC/DC tribute band out of Seattle that plays Spokane frequently. Hell's Bells. Yes, they are here frequently. I have seen them one time. We have a big event here called Pig Out in the Park. I think that's where I saw them, Pig Out in the Park. They're all great, but they have a phenomenal woman playing lead guitar. I was just wondering if you had seen them. Yes, I have. I've only watched them on YouTube. If you end up with either the drum gig in Rush or the bass job in Styx, I hope you'll remember us little people. Thanks again, and say hello back to Marion and the other guys and gals for me. or Marlon. I'm sorry. Thanks again, and say hello back to Marlon and the other guys in Galsring. Marlon checks in regularly. Hi. So Ron says hi. That's from Ron Kramer. Ron, thank you so much. Please email us back. Another great email here from Lauren. Lauren, again, a regular supporter. We love to hear from Lauren. And Lauren wrote in the last email last week, maybe it was even Monday, can't remember, this back and forth between Ted Nugent and Joan Jett, which happened really kind of a year ago or so. And I'm going to say this, Lauren, I think you and I are pretty much on the same page as far as the Nuge. When I read what you said here, I'm like, yeah, that's me. Okay. That's pretty much exactly what I'm thinking. So Lauren says, hey, Jeremy, I missed your shows this week. That's because I haven't been making any. Sorry. And your Rock and Roll Hall of Fame rants. Speaking of that, my second Styx concert was in 2017 and Foreigner opened. Weird that Styx isn't in the Hall of Fame yet, but Foreigner will be. Foreigner had no original members on stage when I saw them. I saw Mick walking around backstage before the show. Apparently, Styx did something to someone high up in the Hall of Fame. I have to wonder if Foreigner is a dig against Styx. Could be. I think having Jan Winter gone, Jan Winter was the one running the hall, and he's now gone. I think things may get better. I'm hoping. I highly respect Ted as a guitarist. This is back to Nugent. I usually stick up for him on music boards when everyone slams him, usually because they don't care for his politics. Bands that choose to take sides and preach their politics will always draw criticism no matter how talented they are. I left a project once because the other guitarist wanted to perform a song with a political spin. Agree, you piss off 50% of your audience, and the other 40% you didn't upset probably don't want to hear it anyway. Got to tell you a Ted story. I've seen the Nuge 3 times. Last time was 2008 at the State Fair in Linden, Washington. I have been to the State Fair in Linden, Washington, but probably 88. So quite a while ago. 2008 was an election year. The crowd was full of families and kids who got in for free. I was with a bunch of my guitar students and parents. About halfway through the show, Ted walks out with a huge 8-gauge shotgun and says, quote, Hillary can wrap her lips around this, and other equally distasteful remarks in front of a bunch of families and kids. I'm telling you, people were leaving in groves. The local newspaper was full of letters condemning Ted for his language in front of kids and his guns. The Washington State Fair banned him from ever playing again, as they should. Ted was out of control, as he likes to put it. I really only like his first 3 albums. After Derek left, it was all over in my book. I have met Ted, though, and he was super cool. I just kept the topic to music. I do hunt, and I don't agree with his hunting practices. I'll save that rant for another time. Hope you're doing well. Thanks for the shows. I'm enjoying the radio station. Cool to hear Dio Era Sabbath and Night Ranger. I haven't heard any Good Journey yet, and to me that means anything before Greg Raleigh departed. Where Were You is a great song. Lauren, few things there. First of all, what you said about Ted, spot on. And again, even if you might agree with his politics, right? Why would an artist have to say stuff like that you got kids there, I wouldn't take my kids to see Ted Nugent because, to be honest, just the language he uses, I don't know. I don't see the need for that. So I completely agree with you. I mean, it's just not, I don't understand the mentality of an artist that does that. The political stuff aside, okay? You got kids there, you got families there. Why would you do that? Why would you bring a shotgun out on stage and say someone should put that barrel in their mouth? I mean, that it's stupid. It's dumb. So I completely agree with you. And through some family connections, I know I have relatives that are in the hunting industry that know Ted and have worked with Ted, and by every account I've heard that in person, he's a great guy. Okay, if you're a great guy, then why do you want to be an a-hole when you're on stage in front of people? I don't understand that mentality. So I'm completely on board with you there, Lauren. And your recommendation about Journey, I've got quite a few bit of Journey stuff, but you're right. I don't have much Greg Raleigh Journey stuff. It's a very good point. I'm going to rectify that. I'm going to get more of that into the rotation. But thank you so much for your email. And with that, guys, I want to say thank you to all of you for tuning in for this update. We went kind of long today. Wow. A long update. Thank you so much. Check out the radio station. Go to the website, classicguitarrock.com. That is your portal to both the podcast and the radio station. So check that out. Guys, we'll do it all again next week. Have a great weekend. And remember, it's Mother's Day. Give your mom a call. Tell her you love her. And live long and prosper. We'll see you. Bye-bye.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard.
Thanks for listening. You can email Jeremy at classicguitarrock@mail.com.
Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it.
Tune in each weekday for the Classic Guitar Rock Daily Update.